Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rigo Villa. I'm one of the community managers on the Cisco Learning Network, and I'll be your host today for this latest Hack the Stack session, where we're going to be covering from sniffing to flooding, network attacks in action with our speaker and presenter, Kyle Winters. But before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to address the Q&A for the session. We are going to be using Slido for any questions during the live event. So please feel free to submit your questions in your Slido window, and one of our amazing panelists will be ready to assist you. And to make sure you are ready to submit your questions, you can go ahead and scan that QR code on your screen with your mobile device, or you can log in directly through the Hack the Stack live streams page. One important note about Slido is that it's only available to our live audience. So if you're watching the session on demand at a later time, the question submission will not be active. So it's just something to keep in mind as you're watching it later on. All right, and without any further delay, I'd like to introduce today's speaker who is going to be driving today's session. Hey, Kyle, how are you? Are you ready to dive in today?
Hey, Rigo, doing good. Excited to be here.
Nice. All right, Kyle. Well, feel free to take it away when you're ready.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kyle Winters. I am a technical advocate on the Learn with Cisco team, and I take a focus on cybersecurity. So whether it's offensive security or defensive security, it's something that's of strong interest to me. I have my QR code there to my LinkedIn. If you want to go ahead and add me, you're more than welcome to. I'm happy to connect with you all there later if you have any questions as well, too. But let's go ahead and dive in because we have a lot to cover today. We're going to be focusing on different types of offensive security, specifically kind of around network attacks in action. So I'm excited to show you some different things here today. First and foremost, though, just to kind of set the stage a little bit, I'm sure a lot of you probably work in blue teams, focusing on the defensive side of security, but modern security teams tend to have a bit of a red team approach as well, too, these days. And that's things like ethical hackers and penetration testers. And if you haven't attended one of these webinars before and you're not familiar with what an ethical hacker is, it's really just somebody who's a security personnel focused on finding the vulnerabilities in the weak spots in an organization before a malicious person does. So a lot of people will see shows like Mr. Robot or hear about hacking. You'll see it on different things in media and stuff. But this is an opportunity for people to do hacking in a way that's sanctioned, ethical. You're not a bad guy in this case, you're a good guy. So those, basically applying those same principles, but to help an organization be more resilient, be stronger, that's what ethical hacking is all about. And that's why Cisco has introduced a certificate in ethical hacking. So this is something that is actually the course itself available for free on Cisco Networking Academy. That's netacad.com. And it's over 70 hours of content all about ethical hacking with built-in lab environments. And that's all available for free. So you can come in, learn from basically A to Z, all these different things related to ethical hacking. And once you complete that free course, you're invited to take part in what we're calling Capture the Flag challenges. We release and update these quarterly. And if you complete the course and one Capture the Flag challenge, Cisco will award you with a certificate in ethical hacking to demonstrate your knowledge and skill set in this awesome, exciting area. So I highly encourage you to check it out. It's a very cool program. There's a lot of cool stuff to learn. And today I'm going to cover some of what's in there. So, this course, like I mentioned, it's 70 hours. It's got 34 different labs built into it. It's very cool. You're going to learn about things from reconnaissance all the way to things like different types of attacks, whether they're network attacks or application security attacks, all the way up to kind of the steps that attackers take to cover their steps and the types of reporting that come out of ethical hacking exercises. So part of this course is a Kali Linux virtual machine. And this virtual machine is available and free for anybody who takes the free course. And everything that I'm going to show you today is actually going to be using this virtual machine as well, too. So these are all things that you can follow along and do with this free Kali Linux virtual machine as well. So just to kind of, show you, kind of give you a quick overview of what we're actually going to do here today, I have 4 different types of attacks that I want to show you. The first one that we're going to do is called an on-path or man-in-the-middle attack. This is essentially where we set ourselves up in a way between two devices to intercept that traffic and relay it on. But as we're intercepting it, we're sniffing that traffic and reading in those messages. So it's a way to essentially go undetected in some cases, sit in between different devices, and relay that traffic and intercept it as it comes in. So we're going to do that in a way that's called ARP spoofing using a tool called EtherCap. And we're essentially going to send what's called gratuitous ARP messages that say, hey, that MAC address that you're trying to communicate with, that's actually my MAC address. And we're going to essentially override the ARP table. So that way, when a device thinks it's communicating with somebody else, it's actually funneling through us first. So that's the first attack that I want to show you. The next one is a denial of service attack. So we've probably all heard of this one. It's a very commonly used attack, and it's very easy to do. Ultimately, it's about overwhelming some kind of resource like a server or a web application. For today's demo, we're going to do what's called, we're going to use this tool called Slow Loris. And this is an application layer denial of service. So we're going to essentially cause a disruption to a web service. And the way that we're going to do that is by setting up a ton of HTTP connections to that server. They're going to be very slow, exhaustive. They're going to remain open and be incomplete. And the server is not going to know how to handle that. It's just going to have all these open connections running at the same time until things start to slow down and that service, that web service, no longer becomes usable. So another very easy attack to do, and a very common one. You probably heard of a DDoS or distributed denial of service. This one's not distributed, but it's just as effective. So that's the second one that we're going to cover here today. The third one is going to be password cracking. So many tools, have obviously a username password combination, and we're going to see if we can test that and crack into an SSH system. So we have an SSH server that will be running, and this tool called Hydra that we're going to use is going to try various different combinations of usernames and passwords until it gets the right one, and then we are able to access that server via SSH. So the way that this is going to work, and I'll cover this all again, is it's going to be using what's called a word list, which is essentially just a big long list of different passwords or usernames to try. You can do this as well just using randomization and brute force in a way that just will try literally every character combination, but that takes a very long time. Instead, what we're going to do is use these word lists. It's going to try different combinations of usernames and passwords until it gets one that's right. And then we're going to essentially be able to SSH into that particular device. So that's attack number 3 that we're going to do. And the last one, number 4, is going to be remote code execution. So, we are going to show you how to crack the password and get in, but with remote code execution, you oftentimes don't even need the password to be able to get in and do things like access a root shell. So we're going to ultimately use a tool called Metasploit, which is a very popular, commonly used tool for penetration testing. It's got a ton of different exploits built into it. And we're going to use it to do an FTP vulnerability that what happens is when you put a smiley face as the username, there was a backdoor that was installed in one of the updates for this where you can put a smiley face in the username. And when you do that, you actually get a root shell with that particular device. And then when you're with that root shell, you can obviously do whatever commands that you want. So these are 4 different types of attacks that we're going to cover today. Before I jump in there and start showing you these attacks, I do have one quick disclaimer. Obviously, everything that I'm showing you today here is for educational purposes. Do these things on an approved network or in a controlled lab environment. Don't be trying to leverage these things on your company's website or anything like that, because you're going to get in trouble. So make sure that part of being an ethical hacker is doing things in an ethical way. And make sure that you are only using these types of tools and techniques in an approved manner. Again, this is all for educational purposes. That Kali Linux environment has all of these different hosts built into it. So that's a great environment for you to do that in a testing way. But like I said, don't be going and doing this on Cisco.com, please, or any website that maybe is publicly facing unless you have written consent and approval. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the demo here. So you should be able to see my screen here. This is that lab environment that I mentioned before. Kali Linux is here, and I have 2 shells opened up as well as a web browser, which I'll be using in a little bit. But let's just go ahead and just to kind of show you here, we have SSH connections to 2 hosts. One is just the terminal for this Kali Linux host. And you can see it's got the IP address 10.6.6.1. We can see our MAC address here as well too. And then we're down here on this other host called Gravemind. That one has an IP address of 10.6.6.3. We're going to go ahead and do that ARP spoofing man-in-the-middle attack now. But just to kind of show you what that ARP table looks like beforehand, I'm going to run this command ARP-N. And you can see the ARP table is populated with 3 different hosts. We can see here that our Kali Linux host is one of them. That MAC address is ending in CAAE. But then we also have these 2 other hosts here, .11 and .13. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a man-in-the-middle attack between this .23 host as well as this .13 host. So any communication between those 2 hosts, we're going to intercept. We'll relay it on so that the attacker doesn't realize it, but we're going to intercept and be able to read those in as well. So we're going to go ahead and start by running this command on our Kali Linux host, sudo ettercap, which is the name of the tool that we're going to use, -t -i, and we're going to give it that interface that you see up there, br internal. We want to run a man-in-the-middle attack with ARP, and we're going to put in our IP addresses of our 2 different targets. So that's the first one there, and there's 2 slashes at the end because you can specify a specific port if you want, but if you just leave that blank and just leave it like 2 slashes like that, it'll just look at any port that's coming in. So let's go ahead and run that. Oops, let me try that again. I forgot a slash here. Boom. All right, so now we are scanning the communications between the .23 host and the .13 host. And just to show you how this works, first I'm going to ping a host that is not -13. I'm going to ping -11. And you'll see the pings are going through. Nothing's happening on the top there. Now, if I was to ping the host that's target 2 in our ettercap attack, .13, you'll see there's activity occurring at the top. We're actually intercepting those pings there. So you can write those pings if you'd like to like a PCAP file and then upload that into Wireshark. But just to kind of show you as well too, when I triggered the ettercap tool to run inside of the Kali Linux host, it actually went and updated the ARP table. It sent out these broadcasted ARP messages to all the hosts that it could, saying, hey, that IP address, this is actually the MAC address. And if you take a look here now, our Kali Linux host .1 and that host that was on the other side of it, .13, both have the same MAC address. So as you can see, it was very easy to update the MAC address on this particular host. That's essentially a man-in-the-middle attack that's using ARP, gratuitous ARP. It's also called ARP spoofing. So very easy to do, a very fun attack to do, in my opinion, as well too. But that's not the only attack that I have for you all today. The next one that I want to do is a denial of service attack. So really quick, I'm just going to show you that we have a web service running on this host here, and I'm just going to run an nmap scan on it. I'm going to give it the IP address 10.6.6.14. And if we scan specifically looking at port 80 on it, we'll see, give it a second here, we'll see that we have HTTP and Apache web server that is running on it. And if we go ahead and go to that here, HTTP 10.6.6.14, we'll see that we do indeed have a web service on here. It's just a web service that comes included on this particular VM, but this is one that we're actually going to do a denial of service attack on. And at a certain point here, this is no longer going to become accessible. So just to show you that it's still up and running, I can go ahead and click this refresh button. You can see it refreshes. Everything seems to be loading fine. Before I run this attack, I'm going to just set up a watch on a curl command here, so you guys can see in a bit more real time this attack as it occurs. So I'm going to use this watch function, which is just going to essentially do this curl command over and over again. And you'll see that at a certain point, things are going to stop working with this curl command. So as you can see right now, everything's working properly. It's getting that web page successfully. You can see the date here, and this time it's updating every time that it runs, which is about every second. So things are working fine with this particular web service. Everything is returning properly and normally. And again, I can refresh it here and everything seems to be loading fine. Now let's go ahead and run this slow loris attack. And just to kind of show you, this is actually, there's different ways that you can install this. The way that I installed this here was just using a Python file that I pulled from GitHub. This slow loris.py file, again, it's going to create a bunch of incomplete HTTP connections to whatever I set as the target. And it's going to keep those incomplete sessions slowly moving and open for as long as possible. So at a certain point, the number of connections is going to exhaust what this server is capable of doing. And things are going to start to slow down very quickly from there. So let's go ahead and run this. Python 3, slow loris.py. I'm going to say S50, and that's saying essentially how many sessions to create at once. In this case, it's going to be 500. And we're going to connect to port 80. And that IP address is 10.6.6.14. So keep an eye here on the bottom. You can see this is running. Once I hit enter, things are going to slow down very quickly. Let's go. So notice how things have just kind of stopped. This isn't updating anymore. Things are beginning to time out. If I refresh this here, I don't know if you can see that. Things are not refreshing. They're not updating. I can try opening up another window as well. 10.6.6.14. It's not going to load. With the simple command of a Python script, have exhausted this server's resources, and it's no longer accessible. So, as somebody who's a blue team person, this is a great test to do on your systems, obviously with consent and approval, though, to make sure that you have the right mechanisms in place to prevent these types of denial of service attacks. But this is just a very easy one to do. And as you can see, it just ran a quick script, and now I can no longer access this particular web service here. So very easy, very, very easy to do. That's a denial of service attack for you there. I'm just going to keep this running for fun and open up a new terminal window for you here. And next, I want to show you some password cracking. So again, this is a tool called Hydra. It's very easy to do, very easy to use. If I just run this command hydra-h, you'll see it is giving me essentially instructions on how to do this and some examples as well down there too. And you can see some examples are using things like other protocols other than SSH. You can use this tool for things like FTP, HTTP, lots of different types of protocols are available to it. You can also see that there's a text file that's being passed here as well too. Those are the word lists that I mentioned earlier. And again, that's just a long running list of different usernames and passwords to try. So just to kind of show you what these word lists look like, a very popular one that many people like to use is called rockyou.txt. And just to kind of give you a taste of what this looks like, this is a running crazy long list. This is going to run forever. Tons of different passwords in here that are commonly used, pulled from different types of breaches. I'm going to go ahead and kill this, but just to show you how many different passwords are in this single text file, I'm going to just do a word count on it. And you can see there's about over 14 million different lines. Each line is a different password in here. So one text file has 14 million lines of passwords for people to try. Now, if I was to use this file as a word list right now, it would take a long time. I don't want to keep you guys here all day. I know Rigo's got stuff to do, so I don't want him being stuck here all day as well. I've gone ahead and created a shorter version of this list just to kind of expedite things. So, you might use a longer list if you were in a real scenario, but this is a demo environment. So I'm just going to show you, I've created two different word lists here. One is called top password short list, much shorter, much more reasonable. Very commonly used passwords in here. And I also have one for top usernames as well too, because oftentimes you may not know the username or the password. So I've got a word list for either of them. And you can see we have some commonly used usernames in here as well too, like admin, root, etc. So we've got our 2 word lists here. We have Hydra installed. Let's go ahead and see if we can crack the password on a particular server. In this particular one that we're going to do is kind of a familiar one from earlier, that 10.6.6.23 host. And just to kind of show you again that SSH is running on it, we'll just do an nmap SV. The V makes it verbose. Port 22, 10.6.6.23, and you'll see SSH is indeed running on this host. If you're not familiar with Nmap, by the way, it's a great tool for reconnaissance. I highly recommend you check out last month's webinar with Alex, where he went into this tool and other open source intelligence tools as well. So definitely recommend checking that one out as well. But anyways, let's go ahead and run this command. So we're going to say Hydra -L, and you give it a capital L. If you give it a lowercase l, you can actually specify just a single username. But a capital L tells us that we want to use a word list. And our word list is going to be user share word list. And this one's for the username. So we're going to say top username short list. And then I'm going to give it a -P. And again, just like with the username, if you do a lowercase one, you can just put a single password in there. But a capital P says that we want to use a word list. So we're going to use our password word list here, user share word list top passwords short list.txt. We're going to give it a -T4, and that tells us how many threads to run simultaneously. So this is a number that you can play with. More threads means that it's trying to essentially do more different tests at the same time, but that might be a bit more tiresome for your system as well. So I like to keep it at 4, and then I'm going to give it a -F as well too, which tells us once you find a single password that works, go ahead and force a quit of this tool from running. So we can actually go ahead and use it so it doesn't need to run forever. Last thing we're going to give it is the protocol and IP address of the device that we want to attack. And that's it right there. So let's go ahead and run this command. This is going to run, and it's going to pull that username, every single one on the list, and try it with a combination of every password on that password list until we get one that successfully works. And then we can use that one to go ahead and log in. So very quickly that ran, thanks to the shortness of that, not using that full RockU text. And you can see right here, we had some success. There's a login username there, lab user, and a password, Cisco123. Let's just go ahead and test this out and make sure that it works. 10.6.6.23, and give it Cisco123. And you can see we have logged in there successfully. So that is a password crack attack there. But what if you don't know the password? What if it's taking too long? And what if there's other exploits that you can do where you can get that root shell without even needing to crack a password? So that's where a tool like Metasploit might come in. Before you use Metasploit, though, you kind of need to get an understanding of what types of exploits are available on a particular host. So I'm just going to scan this host here. We're going to look at port 21 because I know I want to do an FTP attack, but you can leave that out there and it'll scan all ports. So I'm just going to go ahead and run that scan here. I can see that this is running FTP on port 21, specifically VS-FTPD version 2.3.4. And if I wanted to, I could also run this nmap script. I can give it, again, the port there, but I can give it this script. Nmap has a great scripting engine, and this particular script I like a lot called vulners. This will ultimately tell me what vulnerabilities exist on a particular system. So I'm going to give it the IP address here. I'm going to go ahead and run this. This is going to take a look at this particular version here. It's going to then cross-reference it with a CVE database and tell me what CVEs and exploits are available. So if I take a look here at this particular one, let me just see if I can click on this and drill in. Let me just go ahead and copy this link address open this up here. Look at that. That's still DDoS, or that's still denial of service. That DOS is still working there. Let's just go ahead and paste that URL in here. And I have to prove that I'm not a robot really quick. All right, you can see there's a CVE here. And just to zoom in a little bit for you, can I zoom in really quick? There we go. There's actually a VS FTPD backdoor vulnerability associated with this one. So VS FTPD 2.3.4 backdoor vulnerability. This is actually something that you can actually run in Metasploit on this particular system. So if I come in here and run this command, MSF console, this will launch Metasploit. And fun little fact, every time you launch it, it gives you kind of a different thing here. So today it says, I love shells. Let's go ahead and launch our particular exploit. So you can just say use, and then you just say exploit. You can specify the system that this exploit is for. In this case, it's a Unix exploit. You can specify what type of exploit it is. This one's an FTP exploit. And you can specify as well which FTP exploit. In this case, it's going to be VS FTPD 234 backdoor. So click here, it jumps into it. And there's a couple options I need to set before I can run this, particularly that rhost one. That stands for remote host, which is going to be the target that we're going to connect to. I can just run this set rhost and give it the IP address of that particular device. That is set now. And just to show you that that is set, we can see it set up there. So let's go ahead and run this. So I can just say exploit. Now, sometimes you have to run this twice. The first time it's asking for a password and it gets a little bit stuck. But if I quit out of this, run this again, it's actually going to go ahead and skip that password part because that's where it got stuck. It's going to create that root shell, and we are now logged in as root. And I can just show you really quick. I can run who am I. You can see there I am root. And just to show you I am indeed on that particular device, I run a ifconfig, and you can see I'm on 172.17.0.1. So very quickly, very easily, just got a root shell to this particular device using Metasploit. So this is 4 examples for you here. Go ahead, if you can jump back to the slides really quick, please. Hopefully that was very cool, very interesting. And again, everything that I just showed you is stuff that you're going to be taught inside of this Cisco Networking Academy course. So again, that's netacad.com, 70 hours of content in here. All these concepts, these labs, this whole environment is all available to you watching today at 0 cost. So you can just go there right now and start having fun on your ethical hacking journey. But that's just a taste of what you can do here. There's a ton more stuff that you can learn in this course, like launching social engineering attacks as an example, things like reconnaissance as well. So I highly recommend you check out this course. It is available to you all today. But I just want to say thank you all so much for your time. I really hope that this was an awesome, enlightening session. Rigo, back to you.
That was great, Kyle. Thank you so much for presenting and speaking about that topic with our audience. I hope that everyone found great value in the information and resources and demo that was shared here today. I would also like to extend a very big thank you to each and every one of our panelists for lending a hand with the questions throughout the event. We really appreciate it. And for our attendees, if you do have any additional questions or would like to continue the conversation about today's topic, we do encourage you to participate in our online post-webinar discussion on the Cisco Learning Network. You can go ahead and scan that QR code on your screen to be directed to that discussion post, and we do look forward to your participation. We have also launched a short survey in Slido, and we would be so grateful if you can just lend us a minute of your time to complete it and let us know how you like today's presentation. We always look forward to receiving your valuable feedback. And again, just want to thank our presenter Kyle, our panelists, and all of our attendees for joining us here live today. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on the Cisco Learning Network. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon.